started. Okay, why don't we get started? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Jam 47. Can I get a show of hands from anyone here from the East Coast or another time zone? Yeah. What about a show of hands of people that were up at 5 in the morning, wide awake? Good afternoon to those people. So awesome to have you with us here today. Hope you're all having a great conference. My name is Nick Kalkounis. I'm the Senior Product Manager for the BBM Social Platform, the BBM APIs. I'm really excited that the BBM Social Platform is part of BlackBerry 10 and can't wait to show you what we have here today.
My name is Mark Sohm. I'm the team lead of the cross-platform technology team and developer relations. So we're basically helping developers however we can get software, and today we're going to help you with enabling your application for BBM. So Nick's going to kick things off and give you an overview of why BBM is so great, and I'm going to take it after that and get into some tech stuff.
Great. So before we get started, there's a couple of things that I wanted to make sure all of you are aware of. We're going to repeat this, but I know sometimes it gets lost near the end. People are trying to rush off to another session. So we do have a lab that's scheduled at 1 p.m. today. We're going to walk you through the end-to-end process of BBM connecting an application. The application is actually one of our Cascade samples, the bucket list, if any of you have tried any of the Cascade samples. It's awesome. It's simple. You have to come and check it out. It's really open to any sort of levels of developers. We're going to be just walking through the code, so feel free to come by and check it out. Second, we've updated our BBM microsite on the developer.blackberry.com site. There's a lot of changes there. We've made it a lot easier to find the downloads that will help you develop your BBM applications. The last thing is, we want to hear about some of the cool things that you're doing. In fact, I have a little bit of a bribe for anyone that comes to the one-on-one sessions tomorrow. I have a time slot from 10 to 11 in the lunchroom, and shows me a BBM connected application on BB10 that maybe you quickly do tonight or through the day today. We'll get you one of these swanky green employee shirts. I'll probably get in trouble for it. I have no permission to do so, but I had some extra ones, and I'll give it to you guys. I don't care if I get in trouble. The other cool thing actually is, aside from from the T-shirt, if you do get one, at any time, Mark and I want to hear from you. There's the forums that Mark is a huge, participates in it and is always there to help developers out. But there's also a new section in our microsite where we showcase BBM connected applications. So if you connect with me via email, Twitter, I have business cards up here if you want to come after the session. I have my BlackBerry pin if you want to friend me on BBM and connect with us. Let us know, and we'll talk about how we can get you guys on that to help your applications get noticed and a lot of visibility through that microsite. All right, so let's talk BBM. 3 things that I want to make sure that you guys walk away with today. Number 1 is a full understanding of the BBM APIs. We'll show you some screenshots of the BBM connected APIs on BlackBerry 10 and some of the cool use cases that some of our partners and developers have done. Number 2, every time I meet a developer or a partner that hasn't BBM connected their applications, my question to them is, what are you waiting for? So we'll touch on the value of BBM connecting your applications, some of the great success stories that we've had. Some of the numbers will completely blow your mind, I'm telling you. And most importantly, you'll leave this room with a full understanding of what you need to do to go back to your hotel rooms tonight or later today and start BBM connecting your apps. All right, before we jump into the BBM Social Platform statistics, I want to give you a little bit of a sort of overview of BBM. Let's take a look at some of the numbers. Yesterday, we announced that we now have over 60 million monthly active users on BBM. That's over 3/4 of the BlackBerry subscriber base of 80 million BlackBerry users. So that's quite an achievement that we have. And it's actually growing. There's 2 million plus new users on BBM every month. Just amazing. BBM users use BBM and they use it often. 70% of users of BBM use it daily, and in total there's over 150 billion messages a month. Just incredible numbers that BBM has achieved. We're really proud of it, and with the applications that you guys have to bring new users to BBM and to share those users with your applications is what we really want. Not only that, BBM connected apps get noticed. So even though there's only 2% of the app world applications in the App Store today are BBM connected, they make up 20% of the total downloads. 20% of the total downloads. So that's truly amazing in terms of the discoverability that your applications can get by BBM connecting them. I mean, it's just awesome. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the BBM Social Platform APIs and how you can create a more personalized social experience. We heard in yesterday's keynote that creating an integrated, social, and beautiful applications is the goal of BlackBerry 10. We've given you and developers the tools to do so. BBM Social Platform allows developers to deeply integrate into that BBM experience. So it's the social part of that integrated, social, and beautiful, or one of the social aspects, anyways. So when we released the BBM SDK for our smartphone platform, and some of you here in the audience have some experience with that, we saw amazing things happen. Contacts of BBM users started to notice these applications. As an example, Nobex Radio saw an increase in downloads with only adding the profile update. So basically showing that, hey, I'm listening to Nobex Radio. Or in some cases, maybe the station that I was listening to. They saw a 52% increase in downloads with just that small minor change. And Mark will show you later on how easy it is to do something like that. Another example, before BBM connecting their application, Foursquare only had a total of 100,000 downloads in AppWorld. Just 100,000 downloads. They added the profile updates capability where they could share that, hey, I just checked into a certain location, I just got a certain badge, and they saw their app downloads double in one day. So they had a total of 100,000. They BBM connected. The next day, they had 200,000 downloads. So it's absolutely incredible in terms of the discoverability that BBM connected can add to your applications. So we added more complex APIs, allowing users to share more and more content. We added the ability to stream content, and things went crazy. People started using the APIs in awesome ways. Nobex is another example. Created the ability to do multiple user listening, so being able to share the station that you're listening to and have a social aspect of listening to music. Multi-user games, stuff like being able to play chess or tic-tac-toe, and then at the same time be in a chat session while you're doing so. So they're just amazing things that developers came up with as we sort of expanded the APIs. And that's just the beginning. As we add more and more functionality to BBM, so you've seen some of the things through the Dev Alpha. Obviously, before launch, there'll be some other capabilities, and there's obviously a pretty cool roadmap for BBM that the BBM Social Platform APIs, and I'm making a commitment to you guys that will quickly iterate on a lot of those capabilities as those features get implemented into BBM as an application. So we have over 60 million BBM users worldwide. Word of your application travels fast, making your application insanely discoverable. We all know that social apps increase engagement. We've built the social network for you. We're giving you 60 million users, or access to 60 million users. We've done that hard work, and it's up to you to really leverage it within your applications. We've proven that BBM connected apps drive repetitive use. People see those profile updates. People invite each other to application and games. By BBM connecting them, you drive a lot more users back into the application. So it's not just using the application once, discarding it. You have that app stickiness. You're able to really re-engage a lot of those users within the application. And of course, obviously, more downloads, more engagement equals more money, which we're all here for. So, many of you that have BBM connected applications today on the Smart platform will recognize some of these APIs, or at least at a high level some of these features, and that's on purpose. We've done a lot to make sure that the programming patterns have not changed with BB10. So the registration capability, and as the first step in BBM. Connecting your application is there. Having the ability to make changes to the user profile is there. Access to the BBM contact list and invitations is there. Application box updates in the user profile, so making profile box updates, adding items to those to that profile is there. And last but not least, we have the streaming data between applications. That is coming very soon, so it's not in the NDK that's available today. But it is definitely a committed feature that we'll have for launch and available for developers to start engaging. So that's doing some of the cool sort of peer-to-peer activities, sharing data between applications. And that's definitely going to be there. We're really excited about it and can't wait to see the cool things that you guys do. So before I hand it off to Mark to give you guys the details and more of the stuff, I want to make it very clear that we've heard your feedback. The number one sort of complaint that we had from developers in hackathons and other sessions was that the BBM SDKs for the smartphone platform was really hard to get started. So developers that were into it and had built stuff, obviously, once you were in it, it was very easy to do. But the hardest part was getting the downloads, setting up your environment, connecting the application, that sort of stuff. We've made that easier, so I'm happy to announce that as of today, all the BBM APIs are part of the NDK. So the one tool to do all your application development. It's awesome, it's really easy, and any developer, as you can see here, that's me, can do it. So you guys can too, and I'm really excited to see what you guys have to show. So Mark, all yours.
All right, thanks, Nick. So we'll get into some more technical aspects of what you actually have to do to connect to your application now. So at a high level, there's sort of a few different flavors of APIs we have that you can use to connect to your application to BBM. So on the BlackBerry 10 side, we have two flavors that you can use in native. We have the C-style BlackBerry Platform Services APIs. So if you're already using BPS within your application, maybe you have a game or started early with that library, we do have APIs for BBM, so you can access the BBM Social Platform using that style. If you're starting new or making a Cascade-style application, we do also have the Qt-style APIs. So they're generally a little bit easier to use than the BPS APIs. So if you're starting fresh, I'd recommend looking at those when you're creating a new application. We also have access to BBM through WebWorks. So if you're making an HTML5 application using WebWorks, you can tie into the BlackBerry Messenger Social Platform there as well. On the older smartphones, the BlackBerry OS 5 to 7, we do have APIs there as well. So they were out first, and they're available for both Java and WebWorks as well. So if you have applications out there already, you can connect them to BBM as well to take advantage of the same features that we're going to talk about today. And one thing I want to be clear about is, as Nick said, we've kept the APIs very similar on both sides. So that actually means that the API calls are compatible between our older OS and the newer BlackBerry 10. So features that you're adding in one, people will be able to see in their BlackBerry Messenger client, no matter if they're running BlackBerry 10 or if they're running BlackBerry 7. Same idea as if you're using the transport to pass data between it. Say you have a multiplayer game on both platforms, you can use the BBM Social Platform to talk between the two seamlessly. One important thing I'll point out, though, is you do need to use the same SKU in App World across both applications. So if you want them to talk to one another, you got to make sure you use the same SKU on BlackBerry 10 as you do on BlackBerry 5 to 7 when you submit your application to App World, and that'll tie the two together. The first step is BBM registration. So if you want to use any of the social platform features, the first thing you have to do is register your application. So this kind of takes the user through the process. Most of it's automatic. It's essentially lets them allow access to your application. So on the BlackBerry side, we're very concerned about privacy and security. So this prevents an application from tying into BBM without the user knowing. So they'll get a little message here saying it's connecting to BBM. It'll do a little bit of work there, talk to the BlackBerry infrastructure, and it'll configure itself with the local BBM client. Once this is complete, the user can enable and disable BBM access at any point in time. So they can go into the permissions of the application and change that. So that's something you'll want to kind of adapt to within your app to be able to handle situations where you are or are not able to access those features. So a little code sample here. So this is essentially all you have to do to register with BBM. So basically we've got 4 lines of code here. The first one is kind of an important one, is where you define a unique identifier. So this, you can use any of the online tools to generate a UUID. That's a sample one here. Our samples that we'll be posting do have this line commented out, so you'll need to stick in your own UUID and sort of add that in there. And that's basically a unique identifier for your application when you're going through development. Once you're done and finished your application and you submit it to AppWorld, AppWorld will assign you an ID, so any user that downloads the application will have that ID coming from AppWorld. But beforehand, when you're testing, developing, and just sideloading your application right from the NDK, that's the identifier that's going to be used. So you'll use that to kind of identify your app so you can talk between the two. The next thing we're going to do is create a BBM Contacts item, and this is sort of the main item that you're going to use to access a lot of the BBM features. So once we have that ready to go, we're going to connect the signal and slot there. So this is going to allow us to kind of follow the status of registration. And the next line we do there is to actually kick off the registration process. And again, that's going to talk to the BlackBerry infrastructure. If you're in development, it's going to pass along that UUID, identifies itself, and sort of configures it with the user's BlackBerry Messenger client. The next thing you have to do is implement the method for that slot. So here you're going to be passed information about the registration state. So the code sample here is just going to pick up the allowed. So once we get that, then we're good to go. We know that we're able to make calls to any of the BBM Social Platform APIs, and we'll be able to successfully execute those. Now in your own application, you want to catch all the cases there, and you can handle the different error messages appropriately. There's errors for things like if the user has the radio turned off, if they're out of coverage, if they don't have BBM installed, that sort of thing. So one key feature that you can add to your application that kind of helps with that viral distribution is invite to download. So just as the name says, it allows the user from within your application to invite someone over BBM to download your application. So when they kick off this process, they'll be prompted with a list of contacts that they have on their device. And from there, they can pick the people that they want to send the invite to. And that's going to send an invite over BlackBerry Messenger. So they'll get a window on their device that'll look kind of like a BBM chat window. And it'll have an option in there saying, this user wants to invite you to download this application. And again, you can customize that message within your app, as well as the users when they're going through the invite process. They can tweak that as well. So the recipient sees that, and they have the option to download that application. If they follow the link there and click the accept button, it's going to open BlackBerry App World, and it'll take you to your application in App World where they can download that. Another great feature for the viral distribution is BBM Social Platform Profile Boxes. So these will show up in the BlackBerry Messenger client under the user's profile area. So here I'm looking at my profile, and under the apps tab there, there'll be a list of BBM connected applications. So you see we've got the bucket list application there, and that's the one that we're going to create in the lab if you're going to come by and see that one this afternoon. And within that, you can also add profile box items. So down below here, you can see I finished an item on my bucket list. I ate bananas for a whole week. Felt great. Glad it's over. But cross it off the list there. So you can actually add whatever status that you want there. You can supply an image and some text. So if you have, say, a book application, you might say, I just finished chapter 5, game application, new high score, music application, the tune you're listening to. So it's basically up to you what you want to include in there. And you can have multiple items within that list so the user can add additional updates there. And one other thing we'll point out as well is this view is from my own side. Other people that are looking at my profile, they'll see this as well. And if they click on the application there, there's a third-party application tag. And just like the invite to download, that'll open up App World where you can download the application. So if you see that your friends are using a cool application that interests you, they can just access App World directly through that and grab your application. So again, just a few lines of code to implement that. So the first thing we do is create a new profile box item. So we're doing that, and at the top there we're using that M Contacts, and that's our BBM Contacts item that we created a few slides ago. The next thing we've done here is register an icon. So on the previous screen, I'll just jump back. I don't have one here, but underneath the bucket list would be the icon for that item. So we can specify that within our application. So we register the icons ahead of time, so that when we request the item, we just specify which one we want to use. So the last item there, we're going to add that profile box item. So here we've got a new high score of 2. Not the greatest score, but I guess they're just getting started. And you can also add some additional information down below there for adding a cookie to it. That's just more information for your application. On the user side, so they're going to see info about the profile page there. And as I mentioned, here's the little tag there. It might be a little bit hard to see. It's sort of gray there. But that's the link to download the application. So on the profile, once we've integrated an application with BBM, you'll see it listed there. And within your application, you can actually update various features within the user's profile page as well. So we can get their avatar image, we can update that, we can update and change their status message, their personal message, we can toggle their availability or set it to a custom message, and we can get the handle, which is kind of their unique identifier for the user. And within the update section, they'll see the various updates that the user put through. So again, here's another one that we had, I think, from the bucket list, or this was a SDK sample, sorry. So we have our link to download, we have our profile update that appeared there, and other users that are looking at my profile will see that as well, so they'll see all those updates. Again, pretty simple to actually do this within the code. We're going to get an instance of the user profile using that context item again. Once we have that, we can just call one line there, request update personal message, pass in our string, and that's going to be the new personal message that's going to appear on the user's BBM profile. The user is prompted for this, so again, another security feature, so the application will appear a prompt saying this application would like to set your BBM personal message to, and it'll list it there, and they have the option to accept or decline that. You can also work with contacts on the device, so you can get a list of contacts that have the application installed. So you can go through and see which contacts you might be available to, say, start a multiplayer session within your application. So if you want to do a multiplayer game, or possibly you could have a book application, maybe a storybook for a kid's book, you can connect the two applications and you could read together then at the same time if you're traveling and your child's at home. So we have our list of contacts. Once we have that, you'll see the standard profile box there, or the contact list. And the same one's used throughout all the processes here. So if you're inviting someone to a channel, which we'll get to later, or inviting to download, you'll see the same box. So it's not something you have to build. It's part of the BBM APIs. So we took care of that for you. We can also listen to changes for contacts. So contacts that have the application installed, we can see things that changed. So for example, I might have an application that updates the status. So the user's in there, they want to play the game, or maybe they're playing the game in single player, and they're ready for a multiplayer game with their friends whenever they want. So you could update the status to say, Mark wants to play Slingshot 5000 with someone. Now the contact presence listener within your application that's running could check for that and say, okay, this person's ready to play multiplayer. It could prompt them for an invite. So it's kind of like a passive invite, not doing it directly, and you can connect the users together for that multiplayer game. You can also listen for various other status updates. So if you have possibly a reward system or just want to keep track of maybe a little high scores table of some sort of what your friends are doing, you can share them this way. So we also have channels that are part of the BBM Social Platform, and this is a direct peer-to-peer communication. So if you have a multi-user application, you want to send data from one BlackBerry device to the other, you can do it directly using the BlackBerry Messenger Social Platform. So this saves you from writing any kind of server-side application or server code. You don't have to worry about setting up the infrastructure, maintaining it, writing that, getting users connected. Basically, we've done all that work for you, so you can use the BlackBerry infrastructure and just build on top of that. And again, I'll repeat, you have to use the same SKU in App World if you have applications across multiple OSs there, and that'll basically allow the apps to talk to one another. So channels, when we invite someone to another channel, they'll see this appear in their chat window. So they'll get an accept or decline button. And this, if they choose accept, it's going to connect the users together. Decline, obviously, is going to decline that, but your application's still notified for that event as well. So this allows us to send data to another BlackBerry Messenger user or to multiple users. So you can send data to multiple people at the same time. Now, both people do have to have the application installed. So again, you can use those other methods to use the invite to download feature if they don't have that. So some examples of use cases. The multiplayer gaming is a great example. There's many applications out there now that do that. A lot of turn-based games make use of this. So there's various battleship games and chess and things like that. But essentially anything that needs to communicate between two devices, you can use that. Nobix Radio uses this for the listen together, so you can listen to, join in to what your colleagues are listening to. Magazine or book readers, you could have a magazine application or maybe a kid's book application. You could read together, so you can have two different devices on other sides of the world. You can both flip the pages together or work together and go through the story at the same time. Productivity tools, so if you're doing any kind of sharing, maybe doing sketching or marking up a document, you can send that information back and forth through BBM. So it, again, avoids you from having to set up any kind of infrastructure. And again, the examples here are essentially endless. You can add your own cool idea there. We don't really limit on what type of data you can send. So it could be text, binary. It's basically up to you. We're just offering the transport there. So how do channels work? So channels basically allow you to send to your contacts within BBM. So the examples here, user A has invited user B, C, and D to their channel. So user A is able to contact any of those. And channels are one-to-many transport. So that means you're able to see who invited you and who you invited. So user C here wouldn't be able to send data to user B or D. And we'll have another diagram in a second that'll kind of expand that and elaborate. But channels are basically a one-to-many. And we do have a solution to many-many, which are sessions, which we'll get to in a minute. So the workflow, what it would look like here if you have more and more people coming into a channel. So if we take the situation we had on the previous screen, well, user A invited user B, C, and D. And so now maybe user D is going to invite someone. So if we look at the green diagram, user D has invited 3 more people. So user D can send data to user A and any of the 3 people under that. So they can send it to X, Y, and Z. But user Z wouldn't be able to send data to user B because they're not connected within the same channel. They're not a contact. So the channels are very much a private contact-to-contact communication, and it's a one-to-many mechanism in that way. So some things to keep in mind when you use channels. There's no limit to the number of channels you can create in your application. And again, how you use channels is completely up to you. So you might just have a channel between 2 people. You might have a channel that includes 5 people. You might cap it at 10 people. It's completely up to your application. You might not allow other people to add others once the channel's been established. That's basically up to your own application logic, but there's no limit to the number of channels you can create. As far as in a channel, for one person's view, there's a maximum of 24 users. So that's kind of the hard cap on the channel side. And we have a maximum of 100 KB per minute transfer over that channel. And that limit can be adjusted with RIM. That's a server-side configuration, but that's currently what we have it set at. So it's not something you'd use for, say, a streaming mechanism. You're not going to use it for streaming video or sending movies to people. But typical sharing data, it should fit well within that means. Yep. Yeah, 24 within the same channel. So, Yeah, basically. So if you consider each one of these people an arrow being a connection within the channel, so user A could talk to 24 people, user Z could have 24 people within that. So it's not the whole channel, it's their view of that channel. Okay? And again, there's no limits on what you can do. You specify the type of data that you're sending over. So essentially you're sending a cookie info that basically works similar to a MIME type. So you can say this is text, this is binary, this is high score, whatever, and it's up to your application to interpret that data when it arrives. So you can feed that in, determine what type it was, and handle that appropriately within your application. So sessions are very similar to channels. On the API side, they're very similar. You create and use them the same way, just swap the word session for channel. The big difference is sessions are many-to-many communication, whereas channels were one-to-many. So in this case, anyone who's in a session can send data to anyone else in the session. So it's wide open. So if you want, say, a big group public chat session, or you want something where everyone is able to send data to everyone else, session is what you want to use. People are able to broadcast data to everyone within the session. So in this example, user A can send data to user B, D, and C at the same time, or they can send it to one specific person. It's up to your application to handle that. And when the user receives the data, they'll also know whether the data was sent to a whole bunch of people or just to them, so they can adapt to that differently. So sessions are available right now in BlackBerry OS 5.7, and they'll be coming to BlackBerry 10 post-launch. But wanted to include them in the session here today, just because we were talking about channels, and they're very similar concepts between the two. So roadmaps. So here's an overview of the features as we sit currently today. So on the BlackBerry OS 5.7 side, we have support for all the items listed there. So the BBM registration, profile boxes, profile page, invite to download, channels and sessions that we talked about. BBM chat is basically a UI framework that you can use to create a similar UI that we have in BlackBerry Messenger. So this gives you the kind of bubble windows that show who's within the chat. It gives you emoticons and an area to kind of type a message and send that off. The final feature there is invite to BBM. So if you have an application that requires BBM for a channel or a transport, there's the ability to add contacts that aren't BBM users and invite them to BBM. So they get that similar process to the invite to download on their side, except it would go through and direct them to install BBM instead. On the BlackBerry 10 side, we have the first 4 features available now. So the NDK and OS that came out this week allows you to do those. Channels support is coming in the next beta update, so it won't be very long. You'll be able to use those. And the last 3 there, sessions, BBM chat, and invite to BBM, are coming post BlackBerry 10 launch. On the WebWorks side, similar. So on BlackBerry OS 5.7, we have everything available there. On the BlackBerry 10 side, with what we have out currently today, registration, profile page, and invite to download are available in the SDKs that came out this week. The last 3 there are coming post BlackBerry 10 launch, and profile boxes and channels are currently in the planning stage. I'm not sure what the exact delivery date will be, but most likely sometime between here and launch. On the tooling side, on BlackBerry 10, we have the native SDK and WebWorks SDK available with BBM integration. And the nice thing about the BlackBerry 10 side is there's no special configuration. They're part of the SDK, so you install it, you've got all the BlackBerry Messenger Social Platform tools. On the BlackBerry OS side, we have support for WebWorks and Java, and we can use those, and obviously no native SDK for that side. Currently, no. There's no Air APIs for BBM. So, yeah, you can create a native extension within Air that you could call and use the native APIs for that.
Is the WebWorks SDK essentially source compatible? You've got OS 7 app that uses BBM?
Pretty much. The APIs are as similar as we could make them. As far as I know, they're probably 99% identical. I'm not sure off the top of my head if there's any subtle changes, but they've done their best to keep things pretty much identical on both sides. Any other questions? And just for sample code, on the BlackBerry GitHub site, we will have a bunch of samples for BBM for both native and WebWorks coming out end of this week or early next week. They're going to be posted. And on the BlackBerry OS 5 to 7 side, we already have a bunch of samples and guides up there today. Now, as far as support for running this locally, currently for BlackBerry 10, you can't use the simulator for BBM applications. We are working on that. That'll be something coming soon. On the BlackBerry OS 5 to 7 side, that support does exist today, so you can do your testing and debugging, run 2 simulators on your same machine, and talk back and forth over BBM between the two. So you can test that without having a real device. But for now, on the BlackBerry 10 side, you will need a BlackBerry 10 Dev Alpha to do that. Some more information. As Nick mentioned, we have the lab at 1 p.m., so we're going to go through the Cascades bucket list application. We're going to enable that for BBMs. We'll take care of registration. We're going to do profile updates, and we're going to do the profile boxes as well. So you'll see about that. The link to the BBM microsite is up there, so developer.blackberry.com/BBM. That'll take you to the main BBM page, and it'll link to all the downloads for all the tools, samples, documentation. So it's kind of the one-stop shop to get all your BBM info. If you have any feedback for us, reach out to myself or Nick. As Nick mentioned, I'm in the forums a lot, so that's usually the best way to get a hold of me. Either send a message up there directly or post in the forums, and I'll usually have a look at it there. So
before we get to that, do you want to we have a little bit of time for a demo? Do you want to show the...
Yeah, I'll maybe run through the last admin slides here and get the demo in a second. So save the best to last there. So yeah, we have a BlackBerry App World Conference Guide app that you can download from App World. And also want to remind anyone, if you haven't yet, swing by the 10K Reasons to Believe booth. So they have a thing set up there if you want to sort of type in a message or record a video or anything like that for the 10K Reasons to Believe campaign, you can do so. Question?
A number of slides back, the 100 kilobytes per minute limit on the channels page. Is that per device, per app, per channel, or what?
I believe it's per app, per app running on the device.
Yeah,
So
it
having
is.
2 BBM devices, sorry, 2 BBM connected apps, unrelated, doing their thing, each one would maybe get about 100K.
I believe so. Do you know?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure it is per application. So.
But you can't extend it by having 2 channels within an app.
No, it's per app. Yep.
Just on channels, but it seems to be the notion of persistence. You've got a channel, twice, 3 boots. You can't store a channel ID.
No, the channels don't retain themselves across reboots. So in that case, you could have a mechanism in where the user could be re-invited and join the same channel again, but there's no auto rejoin after a reset, or if you lost power at that point, they are basically a session or a channel that lasts while the app is running.
That's a great suggestion, though. I mean, and those are the types of sort of items we'd be looking for in feedback and suggestions in the APIs.
So to dovetail that question, so I can't recall if it's a channel or not next to it, to be able to rejoin the app place.
If your application closes, there's no real way to store the channel to rejoin from that user. Your other contact could invite you again to that channel if their app is still running, so you could resume that way. But locally on the same device, there's no way to store the channel. Yeah, definitely. Like the invite process will start off that BBM chat, and once the user accepts that, BBM essentially hands it off to your application. So your application gets notified that a channel's been created. You get an identifier for it, so it's a unique channel within your app, and then you can use that to send data and listen for incoming data. Any other questions? Yep. Yeah, all of this will be available on the BlackBerry Jam conference site, so probably early next week. They're posting them as we go. They'll probably all be available. Everything will be recorded, presentations, the audio for this, for the labs, the sample code, and everything will be up there. So you can log in similar to how you did to register, and everything will be there. Okay. One last admin slide, then we'll get to the demo here. So if you have any other questions or want to meet one-on-one, if you go into the main hall where we had lunch, When you walk in on the left-hand side, there's the experts board. So it's a whiteboard up there. Myself and Nick both have sheets up there. Or if there's another topic you want to ask questions on, you can write your name to reserve time with some of the experts we have here this week. So you can have a one-on-one session. I've got one, I think, 3 or 3:45 for an hour tonight, and we both are scheduled for 10 to 11 tomorrow. So you can cut off a 15-minute chunk within there and reserve time with us. Okay, so I'm going to get to the demo now. If we can switch to HDMI. So, not happy to
set the res again.
Try something smaller.
Yeah, was there 60 hertz somewhere? 720? Yeah, there you go.
60.
Let me try that.
Okay. We can try it with the Elmo instead.
Yeah. Can we? Oh, there you leave. You abandoned us. Abandoned.
Couple questions.
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
So to get over 24 user limit, you just create multiple channels,
Can we try this?
send data across
Can we try this?
the same gain or same across
Basically, yeah. So there's no limit on the number of channels you have. It's just 24 people within a channel.
And the delivery of the data, is it a blocking or push and get guarantee?
It's on the Java side, essentially, it's a listener that you register for. So when the data comes in, your application gets notified for that.
How do I know I have data to you?
You'll get a confirmation of that as well. So
Blocking information or is it
it's not, there was, both options were available, but I'm pretty sure the blocking operation's been deprecated to send the other one. So it's a non-blocking call, and then you'll get notified.
synchronous response?
Yep. Yep.
Per user or, I mean, if I got 24 people and made it to 20, how does that work?
When the acknowledgements have like a contact list, so anytime you receive data or any of the acknowledgements come in, there's a contact list item that comes with it. So that has all the users that received the data or the data was sent to or invited to the channel, so you know what that particular call or who that particular call pertains to.
Lots of calls, fine. Or like it made it to you and 50 minutes later it made it to the person.
Yeah, it could be, the timing could be different. Yep.
All right. So there's.
Okay.
You gotta do it upside down.
All right, let's see if I can drive upside down here. So we've got the bucket list icon here at the bottom, so we'll run that. So if you run any of the Cascade samples, this will look familiar to you. Coming through, all right.
Brighten it up a bit.
There we go. So what we've added to the sample here is a first screen that's going to register with BBM. So the BBM registration was successful, so we can hit continue here, and it's going to go to our bucket list application. So this is essentially a simple app. It's a demo of lists within Cascades and lets you see how you can add data between lists. So if I want to cross something off my bucket list here, so maybe I tipped a cow last night, we'll finish that. So I get the message here, and it's going to basically prompt me to say, do you want to allow the application to set your personal message? There we go. And the user can accept or decline that. So the user has full control over what the profile changes are going to appear like within their BBM profile. So if we click OK to that, I'm going to jump out of this. Go over to BBM. So if I look at my profile here, you can see my status has changed there. I've finished an item on my bucket list. And if I go to apps, I've got my BBM connected application. We can expand or remove the list under the bottom. And the items underneath are those profile box items. If I get the light off that. So you can see here I added the finished, I tip a cow. So if anyone's looking at my profile from another device, they'll have links within both the profile message at the top here that I changed, as well down here where they can actually go and download that application within App World. So there's a great way to kind of get that viral distribution. So the user doesn't have to go directly and say, I want to invite all my friends to download the application. Just by using it, they're going to spread the word and be able to share your application that way.
And there's also one thing in BBM that, in the smartphone version of BBM, updates were a little bit sort of hidden. You had to click on, your profile, and we did raise that up a little bit, but now it's part of the cross-cut menu that you see here. So any updates, as Mark, made to the bucket list would show up, let's say on my device in the updates, and I would see the third-party application tag, the TPA tag that we call, would be listed there as well, and it would be actionable. So I can click it, it would launch App World and bring me to that application. So the updates tab is something that we found users were going to quite often to look at what users were doing and get an update on their status. So that will be part of it as well and have the tag.
BBM platform, the SDK is fundamentally the UI, so coupled to the UI.
Sorry,
We were talking years ago that BBM Messenger one level above their UI.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've sort of abstracted the lower level APIs that we use for the BBM application and exposed that to third-party developers to engage within that BBM community.
Requiring of UI, the way my application stop the BBM framework doing its thing.
No, you're tying into the BBM APIs, yeah. And for now, there is, even though we don't have, the chat as part of the initial set of APIs, there's the invocation framework that's part of Cascades that you could launch into a BBM chat. I'm not sure if you guys have tried it on your Dev Alpha devices, but it actually brings in a card. I'm not sure if I can sample it on this. Maybe we can sort of try, maybe with the web page. If I launch the browser, let's see, I just try to go, so I don't know if it's connected to the internet. Okay, here we go. So let me share this page with BBM and with Mark. And so it's brought in the the card and then obviously the peak within the application work. So you can invoke a BBM chat within your application the same sort of way that the browser did in this case. And it seems like it's integrated into the app, right? So I can be in my application and then swipe back into the chat as part of that invocation.
And you get all that for free just by using the share framework within your application.
Yeah, so that's outside of the BBM Social Platform. That's just part of Cascades, the invocation.
Yep.
On the status update that you showed us, is it possible to set the availability too? So right now it says available.
Yep. Yep, you can change the availability. So you can choose one of the predefined ones like available or busy, or you can put a custom string in there. So you can say I'm busy because I'm busy playing the greatest app I've ever used before.
There is, just to expand on that, there's benefits and sort of cons to using that versus the personal message. In the personal message, there's more space to, obviously put more data. In addition, there's the third-party application tag that would allow you to discover. So we haven't tied the status update to that, just because there's screen real estate and sort of just UX. That we've limited it to the personal message. But you do have full access to update that.
And the status update also allows you to toggle, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a kind of a do not disturb symbol that can appear. So you can set that on or off with your status updates too. Yeah. Other question?
So with the cards through the invitation framework, you could initiate a chat with a given user, not just bring in the chat
It's starting a new chat session essentially with that user, yeah.
So a BBM connected app, I'm thinking of a workaround for the fact that BBM chat, the integrated one, won't be available for by lunch. That would be a workaround.
Yeah, you can definitely do that. Like, it's not something you could call directly to within your app, like to control the whole UI, but you can use that share framework to kind of accomplish the same thing. It's just a slightly different workflow. That's
Have the ID for the user. You might have we'll have sessions. You might have multiple channels, and one of those users, the app would know the ID and be able to put that in the invitation request to bring up a chat with that specific user.
I'm not sure about that.
I think the share framework prompts the user to pick who they want to add. So I'm not sure the application has direct control just to say this, go to this person. I think it's up to the person using the application to check that. But.
We can find out. If you want to just give me your contact info, I can get that answer for you quickly.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming out for the session today. Okay, hopefully we'll see some of you at the lab this afternoon.
And we'll see your apps tomorrow morning, or the first two anyways. So.